Hey guys, Matt here tonight. A little bit late, but gonna, Lord willing, we're gonna finish Hebrews 8 tonight. And this is an interesting part because we saw last time Hebrews 8:6. But as it is, Christ has obtained a ministry that is much more excellent than the old, as the covenant He mediates is better. This point is brought up over and over and over, and it's beautiful. The covenant He mediates is better, since it is enacted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, there would have been no occasion to look for a second. Right? So why was the old? I mean, most of us know this, but let's just recap really quick. The old covenant was useless and weak. We saw that in chapter 7, right? Or end of chapter 6. It was useless and weak. I think that's where it was, wasn't it? Yeah, end of chapter 7. The old covenant was useless and weak. And why was it useless and weak? Well, because it was between God and man, not God and God. And man is useless and weak, right? Man can't keep his bargains. Man can't keep his word. We're pathetic, and that's just the way we are. Think about New Year's resolutions, right? Think about I quit making them. I did, but think about like if you go to your local gym. I heard a teacher bring up this example, and I thought it was great. He brought up the example of the gyms. You know, in January they're always packed. In fact, the gyms count on that. That's how they count on being profitable, right? And then February, March, you kind of start fading away, and then April, they're gone, right? It's back down to the regulars because man is useless and weak, and God knew that because God's sovereign and God's perfect, and God gave them and us the old covenant. He gave the Jews the old covenant just to show them that they couldn't keep it, to break them down, to show them what sin looks like, how dangerous sin is, how serious sin is. And it's interesting how that played out. We see in Galatians 3:24. I like the King James the best in that it says the law was a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. The law was, in another version says, the law is a tutor. It's like the law was here to teach us. And what was it teaching us? What was it teaching the Jews at the time? That they couldn't keep it. It was impossible. It's impossible because Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fallen short of God's glory. Romans 3:10, none are good, no, not one. None seek after God. None. Right? So this covenant between God and a flawed man was given by God just for one reason, to show us we couldn't keep it. And I was looking up in Numbers. I was looking up what this old covenant kind of looked like. What happened? What these sacrifices that they had to make in the temple and in the tabernacle back then, what it looked like. And I won't read it all, but I'll just say this. This was just for the public offerings. The public offerings. Every year they had to offer 113 bulls, 1,086 lambs, over a ton of flour, and 1,000 bottles of oil, and 1,000 bottles of wine. Every year. And I'm not a theologian, but that's just the public offerings. I think when you sinned yourself, you had to take your lamb or your bull and bring it up to the priest, and you had to put your hand on your lamb or your goat or whatever it was, and you had to slice the neck yourself for whatever your sin was. And if somebody knows more about this, please put it in the comments. But you would have to slice the neck, and you would have to watch that animal die. You would see the panic in its eyes. You would hear the gurgling as it chokes and dies right there in front of you. And God did that to show how gruesome sin is, and as a foreshadowing of what Jesus would have to go through. And I think what happened during this time was people got tired because it's exhausting. And I think there was a group, actually Steve Matheson, one of the teachers that I really, really enjoy out of California, brought up this point that likely there was three groups at this time. One of them, disenfranchised, tired, just quit doing it altogether, right? Second group were the ones like the Pharisees, the ones who would strut around and make a big to-do, but inside their hearts were cold. They were whitewashed tombs, right? They were worried about the outside of the dish, not the inside of the dish. And Jesus would call them hypocrites. And we see that today in certain religions, I think. And then there was a group that was really steadfast, that was really broken and contrite, and they really, really wanted to do this. And I think this group would probably be thinking, why can't there just be one sacrifice for sin? Better yet, why can't we have the law written in our hearts? Why can't our hearts be changed on the inside so we don't give in to sin so easily? And that's what we see here in verse 8. This is a prophecy from Jeremiah 500 years earlier. Jeremiah, who every time he opened his mouth, he got his teeth kicked in. He got imprisoned and beat for telling the truth. And here's what it says in verse 8. For he finds fault with them when he says, Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will establish a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. For they did not continue in my covenant. They could not. They were sinners. And so I showed no concern for them, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my laws into their minds and write them on their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Praise God. I love that part. And they shall not teach each one his neighbor and say, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. For I will be merciful toward their iniquities, and I will remember their sins no more. This is Jeremiah 31. This is beautiful. And this is, in essence, the new covenant, right? God's going to hardwire the law in our hearts and our minds. We see that restated in Romans 2:15 and in Ecclesiastes 3:11. He says, I'll put eternity in their hearts and their minds. And it's, what a gift. That's why there's no excuse, And we see that in Romans 1. Although they knew God, they neither honored him nor gave him glory. And that's what's going on here. God creates in us this conscience. That's how we know that stealing that $5 bill laying on the table there at work is wrong. We know that. Even the people in the middle of the jungle know that killing somebody is wrong because it's written in their hearts. And that is what God did. He loved us so much that after so many years of struggling with this old covenant that just wore them out and tired them down, and broke them down and showed them that they could not keep it, God gives them and us this new covenant in Jeremiah 31. And it's really beautiful because it comes at just the right time, right? In Jeremiah's day, the Jews were under attack. They were getting sieged by their enemies. And Jeremiah says, hey, God speaks to Jeremiah and gives this new covenant. He says, no longer will we have to do this. No longer will we have to do all these blood and goats and lambs and bulls, because the blood of goats and bulls, as we'll see in Hebrews 10, cannot absolve the sin, cannot take care of the sin. It just puts a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. That's all it is. It's just a temporary fix. And so God gives us this new covenant because he knows in his wisdom that we cannot keep the old one. That's why this is such a big deal for the Jews, because they want to go back to this thing that only leads to death. This is the very heart of Hebrews. It's hey, guys, Jesus is the high priest. Knock it off. Quit looking elsewhere at those types and those shadows. Look to Jesus Christ. And it's a note for us today too. Look to Jesus Christ. Don't look back to works. Don't look back to the law. Don't look back at trying to do good. We can't. We need Jesus Christ. We need to be born again. And even after we're born again, we need to walk in the Spirit, Romans 8. It's just an amazing gift from God. That's all I got time for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow on Hebrews 9. God bless you.